This video is meant to help you with Experiment 5, mass density. We assume that you've read all the information in the learning unit and that you've read through the instructions. Remember, if you have any questions, contact your instructor before doing the experiment and especially before entering the information into the lab report. The lab report is graded automatically, and if you put the wrong values in, you'll be marked as being incorrect. Let's look at the setup. The setup for part 1 says to set the density at 1.0 grams per cubic centimeter. Now, right down here we see that we're already set at 1. However, in the next part of this experiment, you're going to have to use this slider to reset. So you can move it up and down, but right now we're going to leave it set at 1.0 grams per cubic centimeter. Then it says under the procedures to measure the mass of the red square. So here's the red square. It says place it on the scale. So we place it on the scale, and we can see that the mass is 19.5 grams. Well, in your table, in the worksheet, you're going to put in 19.5, whether you type it in using the typewriter tool or you write it in with pencil. It doesn't matter, but record exactly what you get from the scale. Then it says to take the object, put it in the graduated cylinder to see how much water is displaced. Well, 14.0 milliliters of water is displaced. So we come back to our worksheet and we type in 14.0 for the volume, because we have a one-to-one relationship between the amount of fluid displaced in milliliters and the volume in cubic centimeters. The next step of this experiment says to calculate the mass density. Well, the mass density is nothing more than the mass divided by the volume. So we divide 19.5 by 14, and I've entered this accurate to 2 digits, 1.39. I also put in parentheses accurate to 1 decimal place. The reason I did that is because when you go to the report and are asked to enter data, you're going to enter data accurate to 1 decimal place. Now I look and I see that the mass density of the object is 1.39, which is greater than the mass density of water, which is 1. Therefore, I predict it's going to sink. Now, how do we find out? We go back, we take it from the graduated cylinder, we put it in the pail of liquid, and sure enough, it sinks. And so we can come back in here and we can confirm right here that indeed that result is yes. Now what I've done down here is I'm going to show you, we're going to remove this and we're going to remove this, and I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to say, let's say I said it was going to sink, and I found out that no, I was wrong. What I recommend you do is come back in and correct your error and go ahead and write float in here. Because that's what it actually did, and then you can put the result that it's yes. So that when you go to the lab report, you're going to be asked to put in whether it actually did sink or actually did float. And so if you do it this way, this column will have the answers that you need for the lab report. This shows you how to set up and conduct the first step in Experiment 5. Now it's your turn to go ahead and do the experiment.